Hello everyone, welcome to my political journalism news channel. The story for today is a Ukrainian official says a second attempt to evacuate civilians from a southern city under siege for a week has failed due to continued Russian shelling. Evacuations from the port city of Mariupol were scheduled to begin at noon local time during a 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. local ceasefire, Ukrainian military authorities said earlier on Sunday. Interior Ministry advisor Anton Gerashenko said the planned evacuations along designated humanitarian corridors were halted because of an ongoing assault. There can be no green corridors because only the sick brain of the Russians decides when to start shooting and at whom, he said on Telegram. The International Committee of the Red Cross said the evacuation effort had failed after hostilities resumed. We remain in Mariupol and are ready to help facilitate further attempts, if the parties reach an agreement, which is for them alone to implement and respect, it said on Twitter. A day earlier, Ukrainian officials similarly said Russian artillery fire and air strikes had prevented residents from leaving before the planned evacuations got underway in Mariupol and the nearby city of Volnovika. Then, Mr. Putin accused Ukraine of sabotaging the effort. Separately, Ukraine's National Security Service said Russian forces were firing rockets at a physics institute in Kharkiv, home of nuclear material and a reactor. The security service said a strike on the nuclear facility could lead to a large-scale ecological disaster. The service said on Facebook that the Russians were firing from Grad launchers. Those missiles do not have precise targeting, raising concern that one might go astray. U.S. has very credible reports of Russian attacks on civilians. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the U.S. had seen very credible reports of deliberate Russian attacks on civilians and that Washington was documenting these reports to support appropriate organizations in their potential war crimes investigation. We've seen very credible reports of deliberate attacks on civilians which would constitute a war crime, Mr. Blinken told CNN. We've seen very credible reports about the use of certain weapons. What we're doing right now is documenting all of this, putting this all together, looking at it and making sure that as people and the appropriate organizations and institutions investigate whether war crimes have been or are being committed, that we can support whatever they are doing. In an interview on CNN, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said an investigation was needed into whether Russia was committing war crimes in Ukraine. Putin's invasion going according to plan. The news came as Mr. Putin said on Sunday that his campaign in Ukraine was going according to plan and would not end until Kyiv stopped fighting. He made the comments in a phone call with Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, who appealed for a ceasefire in the conflict that the UN said had created the fastest-growing refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. Mr. Putin told Mr. Erdogan he was ready for dialogue with Ukraine and foreign partners, but any attempt to draw out negotiations would fail, a Kremlin statement said. Russian television said Mr. Putin also held talks on Sunday with French President Emmanuel Macron, who has stayed in regular contact but has yet to convince Moscow to call off a campaign now into the 11th day. Kyiv renewed its appeal to the West to toughen sanctions beyond existing efforts that have hammered Russia's economy. It also requested more weapons, including a plea for Russian-made planes, to help it repel Russian forces. Mr. Blinken said Washington was very actively considering how it could backfill aircraft for Poland, if Warsaw decided to supply its warplanes to Ukraine, speaking on a trip to neighboring Moldova. That is all for today news. Thank you for watching to my channel. Please be sure to leave your comment and subscribe below for more news updates.